So, good morning and thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Souliard. I'm with SmartPTT and LCOM Plus located in Miami, Florida. Today we're going to be talking about the new indoor location feature available in the Moto Turbo radio systems as well as in SmartPTT. So today we're going to go over what is indoor tracking, what are the benefits, the characteristics and requirements, as well as the configuration of the Estimote beacon, the radio subscribers, SmartPTT radio server, and the dispatch client. We find that there's a lot of misunderstandings about this new Moto Turbo indoor positioning, so I want to address some of those common misconceptions or common questions that we get about it. So what is indoor positioning or indoor tracking? First off, there is a lot of misconception that it is GPS based. It is not GPS based, it is beacon based. GPS is not available indoors. If you're standing near a window, you might get it, but further away you will not be able to get GPS. So this new indoor location monitoring will give you indoor positioning in like tunnel mines, airports, transportation stations like for bus, train, and metro, hospitals, hotels, resorts, convention centers, your stadiums, school campuses, museums, warehouses, and shopping malls or other retail facilities. Now, a very important point that I'm going to stress throughout the presentation is that this only works with the new E-Series radios. Some people think it will work with the XPR 7550. It will not. It must be an XPR 7550E. So very important point. The E-Series uses a newer type of Bluetooth that the older XPR 7550s do not use. So a little bit about how the indoor positioning works. You have these iBeacons which transmit their IDs at a pre-programmed interval. The transmission is then picked up by the radio. The radio determines or decodes that beacon ID and determines a received signal strength indicator from that beacon. It then transmits this beacon ID and RSSI value over the radio channel, which is picked up by the repeater, and then the repeater feeds that to the SmartPTT radio server. The SmartPTT radio server has a configurable value to set a threshold of the RSSI that we will consider valid or invalid. We then pass that information on to the SmartPTT dispatcher to be displayed on the map. Now, one of the most key benefits of the indoor tracking will be for employee safety. For an example, if you have a geofence zone created, let's say on a room, you can specify that whenever anyone is in range of that beacon, that they are in a hazardous work environment. Well, when that happens, I can send a text message to, SmartPTT can send a text message to that worker, letting them know that they've entered a hazardous work zone and to follow safety protocol X, or perhaps leave the area immediately. The dispatcher can also be notified so that they know to keep a closer eye on that worker as well. We can also turn on the lone worker function for that subscriber. So if they don't transmit their key their radio or move for a period of time, that we can automatically initiate an emergency condition for that radio user. We can also do employee accountability. I was at a hotel one time, and in the morning I went down for breakfast. And as I was walking down the hall, there was a housekeeping room. And when I went down for breakfast, there were about 4 or 5 employees hanging out, playing on their cell phones. Well, I came back to my room about half an hour later, and now there were about 10 employees just hanging out, playing on their cell phones and chatting. So you can specify a rule that, hey, in this area, I only want a maximum of 2 or 3 employees. So if you have employees congregating, they'll be able to know and be able to investigate what's going on. You can also specify routes that an employee is to take. So if the employee, like maybe a guard, doesn't go from room 1 to room 2 to room 3, that you can be notified that they're not following the proper route. So as you saw, the beacon information is being picked up by the radio, and it's going through the radio network and not through like a networking infrastructure connected to the beacons. This makes the implementation of it a lot easier than if it was a networked. Because it's independent, these batteries only need to be replaced every couple of years, depending on your configuration. Now, some of the characteristics of the indoor tracking is it provides for real-time indoor tracking for MotoTurbo subscribers. We can show subscribers on a 2D map or a 3D map. The 2D map formats include JPEG, PNG, or bitmaps, and your 3Ds are AutoCAD drawings like DWG and DXF formats. We also support multiple levels, so you can have one image showing different levels side by side, or you can have different tabs for different floors. You can also do historical reporting showing the track animation of a subscriber throughout a period of time. You can display the guard patrol route that they're supposed to take. You can also display geofences, and as I mentioned earlier in the example about the lone worker, we support lone worker. Now, the required equipment for the indoor positioning is first in the SmartPTT software. You must have the indoor positioning option. Again, I told you I'd make this point several times throughout the presentation today, but you must have the E-Series radios. So it must be an XPR 7550E, not an XPR 7550. The Bluetooth and indoor tracking support should also be enabled. Then you can use off-the-shelf Bluetooth iBeacons. Now, Motorola sells the Estimote proximity beacons. I highly, highly recommend using these beacons. They're very easy to use. We have used some other products that aren't so easy to use, like the XY Find It. Those are very difficult to configure. The Estimote beacons are extremely easy. Now, I've included this picture here to show you that inside that beacon is a coin cell battery. So a couple years later, when the battery fails, you can replace that coin cell. So these next few slides are regarding how to configure the Estimote beacons. So we had got some feedback from one of our first customers that implemented this, and they're like, well, you know, they had all the beacons right next to their bench, and they're trying to figure out, well, which one am I configuring? So they found, well, okay, put the box further away. Only put the beacon that you're working on your workbench so that you can more easily identify. If you see here in the middle of this left image, it shows the smartphone, and then it shows this green beacon immediately off to the right. That's the one I was working on. The ones around the perimeter, those are all the ones in a box further away. And in the picture on the right where I can demonstrate a list, you show the very first one as being less than a meter away. Then the other ones get out to like 2 meters, 3 meters, so you know that those are the further beacons. So this application for the Estimote would reside on your smartphone or tablet. It works on both iOS and Android. So the iOS app also has a filter to select the closest beacon. So this makes it easier to identify which one you're working on. Now you also see, and I'll talk about this more in the next slide, where it says Mint, that is a name which we can also configure. So I was just talking about the name. You can configure a unique alias for each beacon. So for example, you can specify room 102 or just 102 so that later when you're looking through that list of beacons, you automatically see which one is room 102 rather than trying to figure it out by other means. The other important thing on this slide is about the owner. It says the email address of the registered owner of the beacon. So you see over in the Android app, it shows connected as michael@smartptt.com. The owner in the iOS one is the same thing. Now, here, the important points to notice are the UUID. This is very important because this is the ID that you program into the Motorola radio. It's a 32 hexadecimal string of characters in 5 groups, a group of 8, a group of 4, a group of 4, a group of 4, and a group of 12. These can be modified. Now the major and the minor IDs, these are very important because this is what you program into SmartPTT. So you can also change these, and if you have multiple buildings, you can specify, building 100, building 200, building 300, and have that be your major ID. And then you can specify a room number within that building. So this way it's a more logical understanding of how your beacons are configured. So if you ever go to replace a beacon, you can automatically know how it's going to be configured. Down below, we have the transmit power and the advertising interval. These both impact your battery life. The next 2 slides will go into more detail on these features. So the transmission power, this sets the broadcasting power to specify the range of the beacon. Now the coverage area or the diameter at low power is approximately, it's less than 1 meter. It could be 1 foot or 3 feet approximately, all the way out to about 230 feet or 70 meters. Now that's your diameter, not your radius. Now you see here, as you have these slider bars on the iOS and the Android apps, you can specify the low power and the high power and just slide that bar back and forth, and it will give you different indications as to what your range is with the beacon. Now the advertising interval sets how often the beacon transmits its ID, and that's anywhere from 100 milliseconds out to 10,000 milliseconds. Again, all of this changes your battery life. In the iOS app, it will show you the expected battery life based upon the currently selected parameters. And the Android app, on the main page, is where it shows you the expected battery life. Now the radio configuration, again, first you must be using radio firmware version R2.6 or higher. And again, you must have the E-Series radio. It will not work with a non-E-Series radio. So you want to check that your current firmware version is R2.6 or higher. And then you also want to verify that the indoor tracking license is present in the radio. In the menu page, if you go under XPR 7550E down to menu, there is a select checkbox for indoor location. You want to check that on. Then in the networking page, you want to enable the Bluetooth. And in the indoor location page, you want to enable and then add the UUIDs of the beacons that we referenced in slide 12. Now the SmartPTT radio server configuration is very simple as well. Here under the settings tab, under radio server, add-on modules, and indoor tracking, you're going to check on the active box. You're going to specify the indoor source as Motorola. You're going to specify the minimum RSSI value. So let's say I specify an RSSI value of negative 110. If I receive a beacon information with a value of negative 125, SmartPTT will ignore that beacon because the signal is too weak. But if it's set for negative 110 and I receive an RSSI value of negative 90, that will be passed and displayed because it's a strong enough RSSI. You can also limit the beacons to service. So if I just want to show 5 beacons, I can limit it to those 5 beacons only. And again, this is the major and the minor ID that I addressed earlier. Now that's it for the radio server configuration. For the dispatch client configuration, you're going to click Map in the navigation bar, then go to Indoor Tracking and New. You're going to navigate to the location on your computer with the floor plan, select the floor plan, and then open that floor plan. In the beacon property box that you see off to the right, you click Add Beacon here, and the beacon properties box opens. And the beacon number, that is where we specify the major and the minor ID. So we're going to do the major ID followed by a period followed by the minor ID. Here you can specify the beacon name like 102 or conference room, however you want to label that, and that's what will show up on the map. At that point you select OK, place the beacon on the location on the map, and then keep doing this until you've entered all the beacons. Click Save As, and then save the file name, which saves it with an SPL-ANX format for use with SmartPTT. Now you can specify a geofence. So in this case you can specify, okay, beacons 1, 2, and 3 are part of this geofence. And those beacons, the beacon symbol on the map will be highlighted in the color that you select here. You can also specify a route. So if the user is supposed to go from room 1 to room 2 to room 3 to room 4, you can verify that they take the proper route. Now some of the other options, you can specify which subscribers to include on the indoor map. You may not want to include all the subscribers and just focus on a couple of subscribers. Here you can specify which subscribers to show. You can also run a track animation to see where a particular subscriber is moved throughout the day. With this, you just simply click Add a Track, set the subscriber you want to track, specify the time period, and then hit OK. And it will run a track animation, and it will also give you a list showing time and dates and which beacons they were in range of. So as you see, the indoor tracking feature is a very simple and easy to implement new feature that Motorola has provided to us. It's very, very valuable for all the different verticals that we listed earlier on. If you do have any questions, please feel free to write them in the question pane, and I'll go ahead and answer those. Or you're also welcome to email myself, Michael Souliard. You can email me at michael@smartptt.com. You can also call me at 786-923-1401. I handle all of the states you see here in blue. Then Terry Lang, he handles our Eastern North America sales. He's available at terry@smartptt.com or 786-923-1404. He handles all of the states in green. So if you do have any questions, please let us know. And it does look like there is a question. Is there an orientation to the beacon